Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Edible RX. I'm Laura Rodriguez, and this is the podcast that teaches autoimmune warriors to use anti inflammatory food as medicine. Now, this is a podcast about food, however, there are so many other things outside of diet that contribute to the onset and the management of autoimmunity. And inside the Flare Free Cooking Academy, each month we are digging into various topics with functional nurse practitioners and holistic medical practitioners to really break down each of the possible things that can contribute to the onset and the management of autoimmunity. And this month we're talking all about stress, and we have family nurse practitioner of Gallatin, Tennessee, Sara Magoun, here to discuss with us. And this is an amazing conversation. This podcast episode is just some of the highlights of my favorite parts of this discussion, but you can get the full discussion inside the Flare Free Cooking Academy. So let's go ahead and get started. Hi, Sara. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is a series that we're doing for the Flare Free Cooking Academy that's just kind of teaching our members all about the various different things that may contribute to the onset and the management of autoimmunity. So I really appreciate you being here with us. Sara, you are an autoimmune warrior yourself. You are a nurse. You are like my people. So go ahead and give us a little introduction. Tell us more about yourself and what you do and where you're from.
Well, thanks for having me. Definitely. My name is Sara Magoun. I'm a nurse practitioner, board certified family nurse practitioner. We currently have a practice in Gallatin, Tennessee. We definitely lean more towards a holistic, integrative side of medicine, but we see all ages, children, geriatrics, men, women, all of that, just to give them a more holistic option in our community. So I'm definitely happy to be here and always happy to work with you. A lot of my patients just do so well with your guidance too. So it's a great partnership. I appreciate very much.
Yes, you have sent a lot of patients my way, which I greatly appreciate because, any doctor or nurse or practitioner that prescribes food as medicine, those are the types of people that I need coming into my community because I'm in the business of helping people use food as medicine. So I really appreciate it. And I think it is a great partnership for me too. I just love it. I think it's very seamless, you and me. We're like peanut butter and jelly.
We are. It's very refreshing to have people that you can rely on to provide resources for your patients or clients to help in a way that's really not your wheelhouse. Cooking is not my wheelhouse. So I can tell you how to eat and what that looks like. But as far as how do I do this at home, that's really not my wheelhouse. So it's great to have, resources that can help people kind of put the whole picture together, because food is definitely medicine, and that's bringing the foundation, everything back to basics is where I start with 90% of my patients. It's like, let's reel this in, get back to basics, pull this back down to just kind of bare minimum, low inflammation, and see how your body responds. And believe it or not, so many people, that's all it takes. It's not
that kind of makes your life easy in a way. I mean, it's hard for the patient because a lot of times people want, kind of a magic pill that's going to take all their problems away. But so it's hard for the patient, but that makes it easy for you because you might be like, well, that actually worked great. Maybe we're going to, I see you're so low in vitamin D despite your dietary changes. Why don't we supplement with vitamin D or whatnot? And that really gives you kind of a more in-depth look at what they actually need versus giving them something that maybe is only going to be like a Band-Aid fix for a while.
Right. And I think that it's sustainable to do this long term. It's not a fad diet. It's not, keto. It's not carnivore. It's not, let me eat 500 calories a day. And, a lot of my patients struggle with not only inflammation, but weight loss. And so kind of helping them put that together to say, this is really sustainable, and this is a lifestyle change for longevity, for quality moving forward. So it really is amazing. But a lot of patients really, when I start describing what I want them to do, like, oh, it's overwhelming. It's so hard. I don't think I can do that. And so helping them get through the process is definitely amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's great for me too, because I'm not a doctor or a nurse or anything, but I know a lot of the research and healing modalities that current functional medicine practitioners are using and suggesting that we use. And so to have an actual practitioner saying, yes, you need to eat more vegetables and you need to eat less complex carbs, and maybe let's try laying off the dairy and the gluten. It's like it reinforces what I've done for myself. And that's what I do is I sell my story, right? It's like, this
Mhm.
is what worked for me. And I've seen it work for a lot of my friends and family members and clients. And so I think that it can work for you. And if I have the support of a practitioner that says, absolutely, I think it can as well from a medical standpoint, like I
Yeah.
said, peanut butter and jelly, like you and me
Yeah.
were like spaghetti meatballs.
That's right. We're thick as thieves together. But I have a really quick story, and I didn't
Yeah.
really plan on talking about this, but it was such a pivotal part of my week. And obviously for HIPAA, I'm not going to mention any identifying factors, but this patient came in to see me with lupus, so much pain, had to quit her job, expressed to me that she had just taken a trip and had to have a wheelchair to get from the plane to the parking lot. Young girl,
Mm,
40, I mean, young.
yeah.
So much pain. She couldn't walk. She couldn't bear weight on her legs. And I saw her and we talked about, some of the things that we're talking about right now. And I saw her Wednesday in follow up, 12 days, no pain.
Wow.
She strolled into my office like she was just strutting like a rooster. And she was like, "This has changed my life. I am a new person."
Wow.
That I called my boss and I'm going to get my job back. I mean, in 12 days. So she goes, "I hope this is not premature." But just it can happen so fast. And she's like, she was crying and tearful and said, "I just wish
I'm
some."
holding back tears now too. I'm trying to be professional.
Just like, "I wish somebody would have just told me because I would have done anything."
All of the time and energy and stress and sleepless nights and pain
Yeah.
for what? Because you didn't know. Because nobody said to you, well, let's try this instead. Let's
Right.
start here. It's not a cure-all for a lot of people, but it's a
No.
great starting point, and it's easy because we have to eat 3 times a day, right?
Mhm.
We have to do it anyway. So if
Mhm.
it can help us, why not try to eat something that can help us heal rather than make our problems worse? So yeah,
Yeah.
so let's get into it. So tonight we're here to talk about stress and the various forms of stress and how stress can contribute to, the onset of autoimmunity, if it's, setting off those inflammation markers or what have you. And then also, because a lot of what I feel like I've done in my life is take the things that I found to be triggers and reverse those things. And I've been able to reverse the inflammation. So I took out the inflammatory foods. I took out the inflammatory toxins in my house and in my environment and in my drinking water and in my body products. And I was able to cut that inflammation down. And one of the pieces of my puzzle, and this is why I'm so passionate about talking this and why I'm so grateful to have you here tonight, is because the stress component of my personal story of my life took me so long to put together. It was one piece of my puzzle that I just left there on the table. Was like, I don't know where this goes. This doesn't affect me. I
Mhm.
didn't think that my stress was as big of a deal as it was until I was really smacked on my ass to where I had to address it head on. So one of the things that I heard was, I think it was from Danny Williamson. She said something like, like 80 to 90% of her patients come into her practice with a stress related condition. Is that something that you think that you see a lot in your practice as well?
Absolutely. But going back to what we said before, stress isn't always emotional stress.
Mhm.
It isn't always acute stress. It can be chronic emotional stress. It can be long-term stress. Is there an emotional event that happened when they were kids that they haven't fully dealt with? But there's also the other stressors, the toxins, the infections. Those are all stressors on the immune system. So, absolutely, I believe that it's not only, I think when we say the word stress, we automatically assume that it's, oh, I'm so stressed out,
Hmm.
which, yes, that is a huge component, but we're thinking about stress on the immune system.
Mm.
So, stress coming from all different reactions or all different things. So, like I said, the infections, the inflammatory foods, the toxins, maybe the candida, the yeast overgrowth in the GI tract. Something is stressing the immune system, an acute virus, um, to where it sets off that cytokine response
Hmm.
that just increase inflammation in the body because the cortisol levels come up so high that it disrupts the immune regulation. And so that's when you start getting into the immune system kind of being confused and acting crazy, right?
So does
So,
that contribute to the immune system attacking itself then?
oh, absolutely. When you get that increased cytokine response, I think people got to know cytokines when COVID came because it was a cytokine illness. And that overaction of cytokines is what put people in the hospital. That increased inflammatory response that nobody could control.
Mm.
So that cytokine response is what happens when we get, cortisol elevations and we get this acute stress response. It increases those cytokines, immune system goes crazy and starts thinking that our own tissue is foreign tissue.
Hmm.
So it changes the whole way that our immune system responds. So, absolutely. I mean, I would agree with that 100% that most of the conditions that I see are stress related of some kind. Yeah, it's almost impossible to eliminate all the stress,
Hmm.
in your life, in your body, but uh, I always say if you step on 5 thumbtacks on your foot, it hurts. But maybe if we take out 3 of them, it's not going to be as bad. So we have to really try to eliminate as much injury and as much inflammation as we can, um, in order to feel the best we can. So looking
Well,
at all of the
that's a
things.
great way to think about it. So it's also kind of something that I talk about in relation to food, and we talked about in relation to toxins specifically, as well as like try to reduce your intake of, inflammatory foods, try to reduce your exposure to toxins. So how would you say, in regards to stress, try to, maybe manage the things that cause you stress, and then the things that you can't predict, like somebody passes away or you lose a job, that just happens, but everything else that you feel like you can manage, you should try to work on that? Or what would you suggest? How do you go from 5 thumbtacks to 3?
Well, food is definitely a huge one because not only are we looking at food sensitivities, food allergies, but we're looking at foods that can be hormone disruptors.
Okay.
So things like soy, your GMO foods, all of those things can disrupt hormones. So some of my ladies who have hormone imbalance are like, why are you changing my food? And so many of those foods can be hormone disruptors too. So then you get all of the hormone type symptoms with it too. So
Mhm,
I
mhm.
think food is an excellent place to start. And really, to be honest with you, Laura, I think, and I have this conversation a lot of times with my patients, is I think the woman of 2023 is very stressed, and we're all trying to be the best moms and the best wives and work all the hours and do all the things and own businesses and run the kids to practice and football and baseball and cook healthy food and
Yeah,
prepare it and I mean, it just goes on and on.
the
Not taking,
super mom.
yeah, super mom. And there's so many expectations, and not necessarily from the outside, but I think we put them on ourselves. I want to be all of these things to all of these people. And I think that a lot of my patients really have squeezed out joy in their life.
Mm,
And I think that when you squeeze out all of the things that bring you joy, the only thing left is the stress.
yeah. So you had mentioned kind of casually, acute stress and then chronic stress. Can you break down the difference between the two? Because I think when we talk about it, and I want to ask you more about adrenals, because there may be some people listening that have no idea what we're talking about. So let's start with the acute versus chronic stress, and then we'll go into adrenals and cortisol.
Okay. So acute stress would be like you were talking about earlier. A family member passed away. I got in a car accident. Something that's very quick and sudden, stressful, but it's not prolonged over time. So when your adrenals kind of kick in, you get that. I don't know if you've ever almost been in a car accident, but you get that, and you get that rush of that hormone,
Yes.
that epinephrine, and that all of that
Adrenaline. Yeah.
adrenaline. Yeah. So that response, we kind of, it's normal to have that, and if it's short lived, your body recovers and does fine. But then when you have that fight or flight response that continues over time, so like a
Meaning you feel like you're being chased by a tiger, essentially, in the car.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely. So your life is stressful all of the time for a prolonged period. Like we talked about before, maybe you have um, a parent who's on hospice, or you have a child that's chronically ill, or you have,
Yes.
one of those
Or
things that,
you're chronically ill
or
and you
you're
don't know
chronically
why.
ill.
Yeah.
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 And that's the other thing that I was going to connect. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of being ADD tonight, but one of those things that if you have chronic illness, that can also cause the stress.
Right.
And stress causes the chronic inflammatory illness to get worse, and you end up in this vicious cycle, right? Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
another, that's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it my stress that caused the autoimmune, or the autoimmune that caused the stress? And it kind
Wow.
of gets into a vicious cycle. But yeah, with the adrenals, they're a really funny thing. So typically in the beginning of this adrenal hormone increase, so this chronic stress, so it was a great analogy of getting chased by a bear. So if
Mhm.
you're getting chased by a bear through the forest, the only thing that your body cares about is getting glucose from your muscle so that you
Mm.
can run, and so that you have enough, glucose for your heart muscle,
Mhm.
and so that you can get away from the bear.
Mm.
So all of the other housekeeping things like liver detox, kidney function, GI, hormones, anything that doesn't have to do with you breathing or your heart beating or your muscles running from the bear, take the back seat.
Okay.
So you've got without getting too
Sure.
pathophysiology on you, you've got your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. And basically that's housekeeping, and that's fight or flight. So if your fight or flight is going all the time, all of those housekeeping duties are taking a back seat.
Mm.
Not detoxing, your stomach's not working well, you're not moving your bowels, your kidneys are not functioning properly, you're not sleeping well. So all of those other things can be affected from this chronic fight or flight issue.
I feel like this is why I wanted to talk about this, because I feel like stress affects so much of our intricate body systems on a cellular level in
Yeah,
ways that people don't even identify, because we just think, I'm tired. I work too much. The kids are
mhm,
wearing me out. Maybe I don't get enough nutrients, or I didn't have enough coffee, or goodness know what
right,
people think, like what is
yeah,
causing them to feel bad. But I think that, at least in my own personal experience, um, I just think that stress can bring you to your knees in a way that, even if like a doctor gives you B12 and gives you ginseng and gives you these things that can maybe make you feel better, if you never really address the stress, even if it's from a variety of different ways that it's coming at you, my parents passed away. My husband is never home.
mhm,
My kid doesn't sleep. My job is really stressful. And then you have all the other stuff that you were mentioning, like I still have this random co-infection that's never been fully released from my system. I don't detox enough, or like my body doesn't detox well. I'm eating stuff I'm not supposed to. I have mold in my house that is undetected. It's like, um, you're just never gonna heal, because your conditions will spiral into one thing from the other. So like for me, it was, I was diagnosed with stage 3 adrenal fatigue, and it took me about a year to fix that, with bioidentical hormones and all of the supplements that I was given. And also everything that my doctor told me, it helped, but I had to read all that I could read on how to manage stress. And I had to physically teach myself to start saying no. Start
Yes.
saying no to people and things and places that don't serve me, and to stand up for myself and know my worth, and start putting myself first, putting myself before my child, before my husband,
Yes.
before my job, which was so hard to do. And it's still
Yeah.
things that I have to consciously work on,
Yeah.
before, and literally removing myself from familial situations if they were causing me stress. Like so many different things that I had to really work on, because I was never going to get out of that, no matter how much ginseng, B12, bovine adrenals, and bioidentical,
Yeah.
cortisol I was taking, or not cortisol, but progesterone.
Yeah.
And I came out of it luckily, but I feel like I was blessed that I had somebody to take one silly little question on an intake form when I went to the doctor for something completely unrelated, to go, we're going to test you for your hormones, to come up to see what was wrong with me. Because I went in there for a completely different reason.
Sure.
So I don't know where I was going with that, but I just feel like stress is very complex. It attacks us on so many different levels. And I think that it's a pertinent issue that every single person has to look inward and try to assess, because if they want radical healing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, stress can kill you.
Yeah, right,
Stress alone can
right.
kill you.
Heart
And
attack,
actually,
stroke, things like that. Is that what you mean? Or
I think just in general, it can set off
high
such an
blood
immune
pressure?
response in your
Okay,
body. Yes, you're more prone to heart attack. Yes, I do it. There's a lab test called a C-reactive protein that tests for total
right.
body inflammation. That that is so surprising to me that nobody, that's an inflammatory marker, but it makes you more prone to heart disease.
Mm.
Nobody ever discusses that relationship
Oh,
between
wow.
inflammation and you're more likely to have a heart attack. And
Yeah,
so adding the progesterone is great and it works, but
yeah.
it's a short-term fix because you've got to fix the adrenal fatigue.
Right. My whole thing is, you can fix that, right?
Yeah,
But then if in a year's time you've gone back to your old ways, and you're doing
right.
everything for everybody, and you're working too much, and your husband's still never home, and your parents are still this and that, you're going to
Mhm.
go right back to where you were.
Yeah,
The
right.
body only has so much to give, right? It's
Yeah,
great at repairing itself if it has the tools and the assistance to do so, but
sure.
especially with hormones, they can be depleted, and they get to a point where they can't give you anything else.
But yeah, it's so, when you start thinking about everything, things can get so overwhelming because you can't stop all the information.
Yeah.
And when you start really thinking about it, oh my gosh, my cosmetics and my toiletries and my household stuff and my food and no preservatives and no dairy. And some people just shut down.
Yes. I just said this earlier today. My whole goal for this is to help people start to identify things that they need to maybe try to change in their life, so that they can get a handle on their condition
Mhm.
without making it too overwhelming to where people quit before they ever start. I just said this earlier because it is extremely overwhelming. And all of this stuff that we're talking about, you and I can talk about it like we know it like the back of our hand, but it took us how long to get to this point?
Yeah, long
And we
time.
started from the same place of doing jack shit, and every day learning a little bit more, and every day changing and trying something new. And then eventually it all just becomes like a daily habit.
Yeah. I have a great hack if anybody
Let's
wants
hear
it. And it's kind of my dig into the animal world because I'm super passionate about the
Yeah.
animals. Um, there's an app called Cruelty Cutter,
Okay.
and it's an app that tells you if a product has been tested on animals.
Mhm.
So of course, I have a dog that's been tested on animals that we rescued from this place. Anyway, long story short, if a product has been tested on animals, then the chemical components in it are dangerous. So if you buy cruelty-free products that have not been required to be tested on animals, the chances of it being cleaner are great.
I love that.
So, and they're going to be 99% better than what you got.
Right.
So it's
I
good.
have two more points I want to make before we wrap up. And thank you so much for being here today. It's been absolutely
Absolutely.
wonderful. We've like touched on so many amazing topics that I think are really going to help, transform people's lives. And then if we missed anything on your list, go ahead and shout those out. But just really quick before I forget, because I will forget. Number one, I say this all the time inside the Flair Free Cooking Academy. So if you're not a member, hear this. Stressing about your diet, about the toxins, about the stress is only going to make things worse. So take a deep breath, calm the fuck down.
Right.
Okay. And take it one day at a time. Okay. Because
Yeah.
we cannot change everything all at once. We cannot change the world. We cannot, like, you know what I mean? I get that way with like current events and everything. It's like sometimes you feel like overwhelmed to the point, like we said earlier, where you feel paralyzed, right? So
Yeah.
just relax. Don't make the problem worse, because stress is going to cause inflammation. And then we get into that snowball effect we were talking
That
about
snowball,
earlier.
yeah. The dreaded snowball.
Oh,
Yeah.
and the second thing I want to mention, this is something that took me a long time to realize. I did not read it in any books. This is my own thought. I created this. So you're welcome in advance.
In advance.
Your partner's stress is your stress.
Yes.
So if your partner is dealing with something and they're constantly dumping it on you, that is another boundary you're eventually going to have to learn to set. You need to go get a therapist. You need to talk to somebody else. I cannot be your therapist. Whatever the situation is, however you choose to deal with that, because in my case, I was taking on so much of my husband's stress, and I didn't realize that it was causing me stress. I just was absorbing it because I have always been that type of person. I'll take it in because I'm strong. I can handle it. Give me your stress. That will kill you.
Yeah, it definitely will. And I think healthy boundaries, like we talked about, especially with people with chronic illness, you really there's a way to be supportive, but also put yourself first.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, people come in and say, well, I feel like I'm being selfish.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm being selfish if I don't do this.
Yeah.
But you cannot take care of these other people or give your full extent at work or your children or your husband or anything else if you do not take care of yourself. So you can't think about it as selfish. You've got to feed the heart of the family first so that it can provide for the rest.
Mm-hmm.
So
but they say put your own oxygen mask on first before you do the baby, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be an act of selfishness because there is a line.
Well, we're allowed to love ourselves too.
Yes.
We're allowed to nourish ourselves too. Nobody tells us that enough.
Yeah. And
it tells us to take care of us.
It's all about the intention. It's like, do you want to take care of yourself because you want to take care of everyone else? Or do you want to take care of yourself because you don't give a crap about anybody else? The intention is what's there. It's like, look, I want to treat myself the very best because I want to be there for you. I want to be there at my great grandchild's wedding.
I want to be here for the next X amount of years. Right. Yeah.
I want to hike Chichen with my husband when we retire. Like,
yeah.
I wanted, all of those things about longevity and just anti-aging and just feeling well and getting quality and quantity. All those things are so important. And it's like, well, do you want me to do all the things for everybody else for this short period of time? Or do you want us to be
Right.
have a long life together for this extended period of time?
And
So
also thinking about, if we're going to take it there, let's take it there. Thinking about what is the legacy you're going to leave? Like, I'm about to get choked up. It's like, okay, so maybe you put everybody first and you have a heart attack at 58, and the memory everybody has of you is mom was always stressed out, she was always tired, she was always cranky, she was always hormonal, right? So like, what is the legacy you want to live for your family? How do you want to be remembered? All of these things are within our control. You deserve to live a life that is long, healthy, and pain-free, and eating an anti-inflammatory diet, managing your stress, sleeping well. All of those things can get you there.
yeah, and not worrying about whether you have lines in your carpet from the vacuum cleaner, and not worrying about if your house is perfectly clean and you can go through it with a white glove. And all of those things are very unrealistic expectations. And especially when you have kids and pets and you got the
Yeah.
baseball coming over, just being realistic with if I knew that I was going to die 3 days from now, and these were the last 3 days I had on this planet, would I care?
No.
So kind of
You'd be out there naked in the garden getting your vitamin D.
that's right. So it's like really pull back and think about, if these were my
What brings
last
you joy?
on on this planet, what would I care about? What would I really be doing? So not worrying about the lines in the carpet, not worrying about if your pants are ironed, not, all of those kind of things. So just kind of bringing things down to what really matters.
Mm.
And let's put those things first instead of worrying about all of the stuff, keeping up with the Joneses, I gotta iron my hair before I leave the house. Like, those are all things that are unneeded stresses.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what matters. Think about what benefits your family, what benefits you, what makes you feel joy, and go from there.
I love it.
Yeah.
Wow, this is incredible. Thank you so much for being here today. Let everybody know really quick, like where they can follow you on social media
Yeah.
or where they can find you online. And please tell us how your practice can help folks that are feeling the overwhelm of stress in their daily lives. Maybe they're identifying with some of these hormonal imbalances that you mentioned. Maybe they feel like they are inflamed. What are the services that you provide? How can you help them? And where can they find you online?
Okay. We do have a Facebook and Instagram. It's Reclaiming Wellness TN. It's the at Reclaiming Wellness
Okay.
TN. You can find us online. We are getting ready to go live on our website,
Yay!
and we're in Gallatin, Tennessee. Again, full service family practice, kiddos, um, women, men, geriatrics.
We take them all.
I describe us as a blend between conventional and functional medicine because there is sometimes a need for conventional medicine.
So integrative?
Integrative, definitely. I mean, if I've got diabetics, they can have their insulin and do all the things. So we can
Yeah.
definitely, depending on what people need or want. I tend to see a lot of patients that have been to 3, 4, 5 different practitioners and not had answers. So we tend to service the difficult to diagnose, or
Okay.
people that have just been like, I don't know, maybe it's in your head,
Wow.
that stuff. So we
So
do a
you
lot
dig
of
a little bit deeper with those labs and things like that.
definitely comprehensive blood work.
Okay.
We also work with a company called Genova Diagnostics that does
Okay.
the microbiome, nutrient, food allergy. So we have the ability to do all that functional testing. And I do a lot of hormones, a lot of PCOS, menopause,
Okay.
men's low testosterone, autoimmune, thyroid disease. Um, those are kind of my biggest,
Okay.
uh, I think my biggest demographics right
Mhm.
now. But we can do pretty much anything. We can stitch up your finger, suture you up, do a pap smear, whatever you want. We got it all covered. So definitely always a pleasure to have you with us.
Love it. I think what you're doing is just fantastic. I'm gonna come see you guys because I need to get some blood work done. So can folks come to do you have like a supplement store? Can they come to and like just buy supplements from you, or do they have to be a patient? And are you accepting new patients?
We are accepting new patients. Typically, we can get you in within 2 weeks or so. Sometimes
Okay.
there's cancellation within a week. And we do have a supplement store. It's my name,
Okay.
Sara Magoun,
Great.
SARAMAGOUN dot metagenics.com.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I'll share
So
that with everybody. And then
anybody,
you also do telehealth services, is that correct?
I cannot practice outside the state of Tennessee.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Never
But
mind. Sorry about
if
that.
I have a patient that lives in Memphis
Okay.
and I see them once a year, then we
Okay.
can do follow-ups via telehealth.
Okay. So good to know. So
Yeah.
outside of Gallatin.
Yeah, or if one of my patients is in Gatlinburg and has a UTI,
Yeah.
we can get on the phone and take care of that. So there are definitely telehealth services available, but I'm not licensed to practice outside Tennessee.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. Well, this has been so informative. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you for joining us on this podcast episode. Stay tuned for more. If you want to hear the full discussion, join the Flare Free Cooking Academy. It's my monthly subscription membership, which includes monthly seasonal meal plans, cooking classes, and one-on-one consultations, and so much more. You can check that out on my website, cheflaurarodriguez.com/Flare Free Academy. Definitely follow Sara. I've linked all of her social media and her website in the comments below. And reach out if you have any questions. And don't forget, guys, until next time, eat your damn vegetables. Bye!